my side. I keep all the words you said to me. I get you on your knees. Rewrite all the things you said that I should be. I'll get you, now you beg me please. Hey.
Well, hello, fam. How's it going? It's been a hot minute since I've even uploaded a video or went live because I've been busy panel hopping for the last few months, raising these babies. Hey, Cheap Girl. Hey, G-Ma. Miss Rubug. 420 Tiesto. Mr. Eve. Hello. I forgot to change my background. Dang it. But that's okay. I can fix it. Just takes a second. Good to see everybody. How's it going out here in these YouTube streets? Looking a little messy. I have just about had it with the drama in the Sebastian Rogers case. Bless his heart. It's getting too much. You know what I mean? Hey, X Games Mode. Much love from Memphis, Tennessee. Woo woo. Shout out to Memphis. I've had a few visits to Memphis and had a wonderful time. I love Tennessee. And I do not regret going to Tennessee for Summer Wells. I learned so much in that case. But this live, as you know, is about Michael Vaughan. Now, if you're new here or you need a refresher on the case, Michael Vaughan went missing at 5 years old on July 27, 2021, in between 6:40 and 7 p.m. in Fruitland, Idaho, near his home in his neighborhood. There were very little updates, except for in October of 2021, there were 2 vehicles that police wanted to speak to the drivers and passengers, if there were any, of the vehicles. And the Blue Avenger was one of the vehicles. It was a teenager in the subdivision across from Michael's home. He came forward. Well, they went and got him, allegedly from the mother, and talked to him. And that's all we know about that. And then the Honda Pilot, 2016, maybe 2018 Honda Pilot. They have a feeling they know who that Honda Pilot belongs to, just not who drove it that day. And so they also wanted to talk to the walking man, as I call him, who was seen near the splash pad close to the home, which it's about one street up to the right. And that has never really been clarified 100%. They think they know who it is, though. There is an article that I found where they state that they think they know who that is. Makes me kind of feel like they kind of knew from the jump. And because that person never came forward, or maybe, deeper into the investigation, they figured it out. I don't know. My feeling, hypothetically, they always knew. Just my speculation there. And what else? Obviously, the biggest breakthrough was in November of 2022 when news broke that there was an arrest made of Stacy Wondra, who lived on 1102 Red Wing Street in that subdivision, Hidden Meadows, which is across, like I said, from the Michael Vaughan home. And the tip allegedly came from her husband, Stacy Wondra, who was in jail for a federal gun charge. That federal charge that he received after Sarah went to jail in April of 2022, unrelated to Michael Vaughan, is what we're going to go over. We're going over Stacy Wondra and his federal court docs, and a couple of docs from Stacy Wondra and her federal gun charge, because it was Fayette County trying to charge her, and then they dropped that and it went federal, some of the charges, and then she got recharged for some of those charges that were dropped. We'll get into it. But the long and short of it, period, is that, 4 suspects were named, those two, the Wondras, and then Adrian Lucene and Brandon Shurtleff, who was staying with the Wondras around the time of his disappearance. A little bit more information before we just jump into the court docs is that allegedly all 4 suspects say they are innocent, and that there is, specifically in Stacy Wondra's case, that there's an explanation for why they dug in the backyard. It was a false tip. He was interrogated, yada, yada, yada. And that section, though, of the excavation of the backyard in November of 2022 and what his reasoning is, and the court docs from the federal gun charge that he was arrested in May of 2022 on, that's where we're honing in on. That's the timeline. What did Stacy Wondra say? Does it match up? Does that make sense? Whew, that was a long-winded intro, y'all. Good to see you. I'm going to say hi to everybody before we jump in. See if my chat is working today. Maybe, maybe not. It has been so long since I've been live. Everything's weird. While I'm getting my chat fixed, I just wanted to say that I know I come on here a lot and say I'm going to go live and do all of this content, but first of all, I got ADHD. Second of all, I have time management issues. But thirdly, I had a baby, and this has been the worst year besides the COVID year that we have been sick habitually. It has been just back to back, whether it be pollen related or sinuses or colds, flus, it just keeps coming hard and heavy. So I apologize for not sticking to my story, but I'm trying, y'all. I'm getting back into it as much as I can. So I'm going to stop promising that I'm going to do series and stuff. I'm just here when I am. You know what I mean? I do my best. And at least I'm dressed, okay? And not in jammies. All right. I think I said hi to everybody that was here. I saw a uptick in folks that came in. Lurkers in the back, don't be shy. And if you are, just hit that like button on your way in or as you stay. People who are watching the replay, go ahead and hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button if you like what you hear. And share. I appreciate it. All right. So I'm going to take my ugly mug off here. I just wanted to let everybody know that I exist. I'm not, I am not Freddy Krueger today, anyway. So I'm going to take this off so that we can blow this up. I think my chat's working, though. I'll pull up a Mr. Eve. Yeah, there we go. Thank you all for being here, Eve, and I do appreciate you all for the support. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. Miss Rubeck says, allergy season hit my son like a wrecking ball. Y'all, I forgot to tell you. And I'm sorry to hear that, Miss Rubeck. I was really tired one day. I had broken out into a rash. I thought, oh, allergies, pollen, because it happens, okay? Oh, no. I went to the hospital after being literally unable to stay awake. I was so exhausted and I was dehydrated. And I got strep, but I got strep A. I have never had strep A. I've always had strep B when I do get it because I have an autoimmune deficiency. So, y'all, I swear on my life, I thought I was going to my maker. Let me tell you, I thought strep A was going to take me out, finito, over, because I could not stay awake. I couldn't open my eyes very well. The water, I could drink so much water and so many of the electrolyte drinks, nothing stuck. It was insane. So thank the Lord I'm alive. I don't know how, but thank you to Mr. E for taking care of me and the kiddos when I was sick, because it was bad. And they were sick at the same time with other things. They never got it. I did. 1, 2, Eve is coming for you. Right? That's right. All right, so I'm going to take this the cam down and let's get into the court docs. Again, what we're doing here is looking at what Stacy Wondra, specifically the suspect, one of the 4 suspects, said when he was out. Currently, he is back in federal prison for a probation violation. All right. And so we're going to get into, can we reasonably and logically deduce what was going on in the timeline? The time frame is very, very important, because it doesn't ever really say in the court documents specifically that Stacy Wondra changed his plea when the police came to interrogate him while he was in prison in Ada County. All right. It doesn't say, it doesn't directly say that. So we're going to look at kind of the back end here and read between the lines and see what we come up with. It is speculative. It is not 100% fact. We're just going over it to see what we can reasonably deduce. Okay. All right. Give me just a second. Let me change my background, like I said I was going to do, because it's going to bother me, y'all. You know how I am. But let me tell you what the most surprising part of this live is going to be. Whew. I went to Pacer, which is the federal, where you get your federal court documents on federal cases. And Lord, on August 7th, 2024, I see a new case opened for Stacy Wondra. And you're going to laugh when I read the letter that he wrote and what he plans to do. I don't mean to be disrespectful to Stacy Wondra on this. However, when I read it, you're going to understand, all right, that it's rich. It's rich, to say the least. So just hang tight for that. You don't want to miss that. And not only that, there is some information in regards to Michael's case specifically, where he kind of proclaims his innocence on his involvement. And it's just really interesting to see that, and how he says, we'll get there. I don't want to spoil it right now. It's nuts. Just every time that I check his Pacer, I know that it's going to be interesting, to say the least. There's something that he is always cooking up in his brain, which makes it very hard to believe anything he says. All right, here we go. Boom. Now, if you don't know, NCMEC did do an age progression photo of Michael Vaughan and what he would look like if he is alive at 8 years old, which is here. Now, I'm going to be real with you all. Did I get sent AI photos of what somebody else thinks that he would look like more so? And then I also did it just to see. Yes, I did. And it's not this picture. And in fact, the ones that we both shared amongst each other, a friend of mine, I think looks way more realistic. No, I'm not going to post them, and I'm not going to share them openly. I just think that, in my personal opinion, and I'm no expert, so who am I, right? But I just feel like it's a little off. But again, hey, Summer Wells, some people feel the same way. All right. So let's get into the older documents first. Okay. Now, I can't tell you how many times Stacy Wondra has had to, his legal representation during this time in May of 2022 onward has had to file a motion for continuance, because there was something, either an issue with his current attorneys, a breakdown in communication, not agreeing, whatever it may be. And these federal prosecutors, they have a lot of cases. So they're not just sitting here and they're not going to placate to you. That you don't pay them, the taxpayers do. So I do understand that, legal representation, when you go privately or you pay a lot of money, you're going to get better service. All right. It's just the way of it. These federal prosecutors have a lot on their plates in a short amount of time to do it. And specifically, the prosecutor, or excuse me, the defense for Stacy is busy too. they're public defenders. They're taking the indigencies, meaning people who cannot afford an attorney. So they also have a lot of cases, just like prosecutors do. So there was a special assistant prosecutor as well as public defender on his case. And there was some issues back and forth, especially with the defense. There's a conflict of interest of one of them. So I'm just trying to tell you that there's so many motions that you see that are kind of just the same thing. I'm not going to go through every one. Just know that it's the same dog and pony show. We have an issue, or there's a conflict of interest, whatever it may be. So this is Stacy's motion for detention. And this was on May 11th. So he was arrested on May 10th, locally in the Payette County Jail, which is where Fruitland, Idaho is. Okay. And then he got moved on May 18th, 2022 to Ada County Federal because it became a federal issue. And here's the document here just to give you a rundown that I'm not full of it. And they did decide to detain him. So at first, what they do is they temporarily detain you, and then they have a hearing to decide whether you're, bondable or not. And he was, I believe, bondable, but they held him anyway. Let me check in my chat before we get really into this. Hi, at One Way Street. Good to see you. Yeah, please go ahead and hit that like for Eve so she can get her ass back in that algorithm. So here's the section where it says why. Okay, I'm going to zoom in for all of us blind baddies here. The defendant is charged with a felony that is not a crime of violence, but that involves a minor victim, possession or use of a firearm or destructive device, or any other dangerous weapon, or failure to register under 8, blah, 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 blah. Go down here. A detention hearing is authorized to determine whether any condition combined of conditions reasonably assured that the defendant is required and the safety of another person and continuity because this, or community rather, because this case involves a circumstance outlined in this section. A serious risk exists because he is a felon with prior gun, lying on a gun application. And a serious risk exists that defendant will obstruct or attempt to obstruct justice or threaten, injure, intimidate, or attempt to threaten, injure, or intimidate a prospective witness or juror. So there's that. So that's the reasoning for why they detained him. All right, moving on. Here's the full docket. I just wanted to show you that this is the full docket as of, I believe, yesterday I did this. There was a lot of things going on. Now, the reason why I printed this off is because it's important. This is going to be kind of our timeline reference guide. This is the federal docket for this case on Stacy, the federal gun charge. There are a lot of sealed documents here that I am in the process of trying to send a request for FOIA because it's been so long. However, because he's still in the pokey, the Fed pokey, and I really don't know where he is anymore. I think Oklahoma. It could be Florida. I don't know. It might be Idaho. No idea. Because you'll see he wrote a letter recently and it's stamped Oklahoma. I can't tell you. I really can't. I'm trying to find the guy. I haven't spoke to him, so we'll figure it out one day. Hey, Lynn. Hey, Lenny. So, order on motion to continue. These notices, a lot of them are the same thing. I want to focus, though. I'm going to zoom in here. After he was approved for financial indigency, basically, where you are assigned a public defender or a federal attorney who is eligible to represent you if you are broke as hell. All right, can't afford an attorney. He was approved for that, but still had an attorney. I'm assuming he or someone else was paying for. I'm not really sure who that is. So keep that in mind. So I don't know why they didn't just give him one, but eventually they had to because him and his attorney were having issues. So you scroll down here. There's an order on a motion to withdraw. I do have that, I believe. And this is important because you're going to see his mindset. You're going to see that Stacy does not like being told no when his mind is made up, obviously, on something. And he will do what he does. And he will make sure he tries to get it one way or the other. He is stubborn, obviously. So again, here is the warrant for his arrest, just kind of showing you that I do have all the documents that I need. Date of arrest for Fed is May 18th. So keep that in mind. May of 2022 was a very interesting time. I believe that this was about the time that either then or shortly thereafter, the Wondras were on the radar somehow, some way with Fruitland Police, who is the lead investigators of Michael's case. Okay. Yes, we do have a new kitty, by the way. I'll play a video for you guys. Minerva is outraged. Minerva, my black cat that I've had for a few years, is outraged. And it's probably because it's another little black kitty. Yeah. Mr. Eve did it, though. He's the one that brought this little kitty home. All right, so May of 2022 rolls around. They're, arrested. Sarah Wondra was arrested in April of 2022. Remember, Tanner Butler, dog bone looking ass, and that whole incident. If you don't, there's a video that I will post in my description after this to go check it out to refresh your memory. Or if you've never heard of it, go check it out. It's kind of funny, but it's very sad. The reason why Sarah is actually in Fayette County Jail. So, yeah, it's wild. It's bananas. And they used her charges against her in the Michael Vaughan case when she was arrested in November of 2022 for failure to report a death, which they later dropped. All right. Change of plea hearing, May 9th, 2023. This was the latest change of plea hearing where he finally goes, okay, we're going to go back to our original plan. However, he had a change of plea on or about, I think it was this one right here. Sorry. 8/26/2022. And it was terminated. Actually, I apologize. 8/25/2022. So that warrant was entered in May 18th, right? But it wasn't officially on the record for anybody like me to see until August 25th. Why is that important? What does that mean, Eve? It means that when he agreed to a plea, because of all of the issues with the lawyers, they finally showed us, the public, that there was an actual case, right? That was detailed out like this. Otherwise, if we were to sleuth this person, which we already were before this even happened in November of 2022, us folks in the back were already looking at specifically one person in our group. But we would not have seen this. And I don't believe she did. The one that was sleuthing this person, specifically Stacy Wondra. That's why. Why were they hiding this? So it makes me feel like they sealed that document. It was entered in on Pacer on 8/25 finally. Why were they hiding Stacy Wondra's case before that? They may have been on their ass before August of 2022. And Stacy Wondra told me that they were coming to him around August. So that makes sense. They were already scouting. And I do think that the whole reason that Stacy Wondra was arrested and caught, right? Not just because of his stupidity. I mean, he did it himself. He went to a gun store and tried to sell a gun when he was a felon and shouldn't have. And he bought a gun allegedly across state lines, which is a no-no when you're a felon. So I think that tipped off the feds, who were already looking at Michael's case, because the feds are the ones that charged Stacy Wondra after Sarah was booked in April of 2022. Okay? They were already on the radar, and this just so happened to be a trigger for, I believe, Fruitland police to look into them more, especially because allegedly their car, the truck that they were driving on the day Michael disappeared, right before 6:40, so 6:38, I believe Stacy says, they got out of the truck and put fluid in for the power steering. And so, of course, why wouldn't Fruitland PD investigate harder and more? That makes sense to me, but a lot doesn't. I digress. I'm going to check in with chat before we go on, because I am all over the place, but it'll make sense here in a minute. Okay, I think everybody's good. Hellcat, I still feel like something might be happening in the case when he gets out soon, right? I agree, especially with the latest and greatest going on. A lot of movement. Lenny, I am so glad Eve is doing this. I would not understand this. I hope that I'm making sense. If I don't, please let me know and I'll try to clarify as much as I can. It's a lot of dates and a lot of things that I know that you don't know, that I forget that you don't. So please tell your girl Eve, back up, whoa, slow down, I don't get it. Please do. And I'll do my best. So July 2022, picture it, Twitter. The babysitter who was at one point questioned, just investigated, cleared allegedly per Crimin, who is a detective. Back in September 2021, she was already out. They weren't looking at her, but she got a call from a detective asking about Stacy Wondra, because Stacy Wondra on his Facebook had Michael's photo that she shared early into the investigate, like the second day he went missing. Stacy Wondra put his Michael Vaughan's picture on his Facebook. I don't think that it didn't look to me suspicious, because everybody was doing that. A lot of people were. They did the typical, hey, there's a missing child in our neighborhood. Please look out for them. I don't know what that in particular tipped off the police. I just think it was a question just to see if the babysitter knew anything, because it came from her. It was her photo of Michael. Not only that, though, specifically Tyler Bond, the father of Michael Vaughan's sister, Chrissy, per the detective, said, apparently you sent this to Stacy. Do you know him? So, the detective was asking questions, and it was really rich hearing the fact that a family member is automatically assuming and blaming that the babysitter is involved in this, because I think that was the whole point at the beginning, that from what I know and what I've heard, okay? Trust me. She was the target. Bet that she was number one suspicious because of some of the things she does, says, whatever. So I think the family, first of all, knew about them being on the radar with police early on, maybe May, June, July. Or why? Because otherwise, how would the detective, unless she's lying to the babysitter, how did Chrissy Vaughan know about Stacy and Sarah being on the radar of the police? So when you think about the shocking news on November of 2022 that they're digging up the backyard of Stacy and Sarah Wondra, was it? I'm sure, of course, it was shocking, but were they really that unknowing about it? Was it already on the radar early, and it just so happened that the excavation was the shocker, not the people? Because from what has been out there, nobody knew about these people, not even the parents, not the family. But I don't think that's correct. And that could be them protecting the integrity of the investigation. And so they had to act as if they didn't know. But I do find it very interesting that detectives told them that, right? Because as a mother, right, and my family would totally be on their, where's my beep beep? Because I'm going to do this right, y'all. I'm going to be good. Where's my beep beep? I would, nah, fuck that. I would be on their fucking front door, banging it down, trying to get some answers every day. Like, I'd be in the jail. Okay. So I was really surprised to hear that, right? Or to figure that out, rather, not hear it, figure it out, that they knew already. Not that I'm saying it's a bad thing or that it's nefarious. It's just weird. It's not normal, usually, in these situations, especially on this level. So getting back on track here. July, we obviously know for a fact July Fruitland PD is investigating more. So when August rolls around and this finally comes to light, not that we knew it at the time, but it comes unsealed technically on Pacer, where people could actually sleuth it if they wanted to. What starts to happen? Well, they terminated a motion to withdraw and then entered that indigency lawyer, I can't remember his name. I'll pull it up here in a minute. And all of these pleas right here, 23 through 25 and 26 and 27, this is where the pleas start to come in, the plea changes, questioning the plea originally that he took because of the lawyers withdrawing, because they just can't come to an agreement. There's something going on in August and September of 2022. So let's think about what's going on at that time. Sarah Wondra was released from Payette County Jail. Or excuse me, was it federal? I think it was federal, rather. I apologize. Her federal case, she was released on basically conditions of release where she had to check in and all that stuff, like probation, right? In July of 2022. Yet Stacy Wondra was still in the pokey. And from what he told me, he said, I thought that I was going to get out. I really thought that by August or September, I was doing whatever it took just to get out, because I wanted to be back with my wife and, whatever. So he legitimately thought everything was going to work out for him. Boy, was he wrong. Sir. Right? So let me check in my chat real quick. Eve, you are a voice for the missing and we love you. You are not for sale, unlike so many influencers in the true crime community. Thank you, Ruby Rose. I appreciate that. J. Marie, good to see you. Little Texas Tornado. It has been a while. Good to see my old friends. So, yeah, Sarah's out. Stacy isn't. Stacy's calling the neighbor at 1101 Red Wing, which is Carson Starkey, the registered sex offender that JLR called and talked to and had an interview and posted, right? Saying, I have nothing to do with this. Me and my ex-wife, Dorothy Starkey, we have nothing to do with this. And all that stuff. So Stacy was like, hey, I calling Carson saying, hey, when I get out soon, this was in May or June of 2022, can I borrow your car when I get out so we can continue that damn taxi business? Right? Faith Taxi LLC. Lord help us with that. So he really did think this was going to just be okay. He's going to get bailed out eventually. He's going to make the best plea deal for himself and get the hell out of the pokey. And that did not go his way. Now, remember, if anybody was around watching the interviews that he did one on my channel. He did one on, God, everybody's. Anybody that would pay him or give him at least some kind of hope that there's money coming, he took the interview, okay, until his lawyer shut it down. But remember, even though he wasn't factually correct on times and dates, and they did change, and I'm not making excuses for that. It is what it is. He kept it very consistent on the fact that police were coming on in August, through November, and he tried to make a plea deal as best as he could to get out of prison. He came out, I believe, on my channel and maybe one other channel about that. I think it was a lab or maybe Justin Fraw. But he came out and said, I told the police that Michael was in the backyard at this point, in the backyard across from the patio along the fence line, because I was angry that they were interrogating me so much. And I figured that, if they knew that they weren't going to find Michael, this is just what he said, not what I'm believing or whatever. But, that he knew that they weren't going to find him, and that because of that, they would be easier on him and pity him for being bullied by the police and being interrogated, right? That they would let him out of prison. Now think about this. I'm not saying that is appropriate. It's egregious. It is wrong. Matter of fact, I'm surprised they didn't charge him with tampering or something, lying to investigators, whatever. I was surprised Home Dude did not serve more time for that alone. But I do believe that because of his mental disabilities, I do believe that they had to make a choice, meaning the federal prosecution of his case. So instead of charging him and piling on more work onto them on Stacy's case, they went back over all this time. And in May of 2023, district judge to take plea waived his right to buck the system on that plea and keep the charge and the plea that he originally did and kept it. And he finished his sentence and actually got out a little earlier because that's how it works in the Fed pokey. Apparently you could get time served basically and credited to your sentence. Think about that. Think about going through all of that, lying to investigators or not telling investigators where he actually is, right? And I don't know if he was back there or not. We don't really know yet. But going through all of that, not getting any additional charges, it just reverted right back to where he was when this began. He waived his right to buck the system on this plea, and he took and kept his original plea. And they said, cool. So what we're going to do is recommend what that guilty plea is. It's the same thing. It's the same exact plea he took. And he was like, cool, yep, boom. And here we are. So let's go through that real quick. So this is filed in December of 2022, but let's go up to the plea of August 23rd, 2022. 13 pages of insanity. Again, let me reiterate, keep this in mind. May, June, and July, family and or police were on to these people, the Wondras specifically. The babysitter got a call from the detective saying, hey, sister of Tyler is saying that you sent this to Stacy, the picture, what's going on? They could be a potential suspect. We're investigating them. She's like, nope, didn't send him shit. Copy and paste. Then the detective called and said, take that post down on Twitter. This could be a suspect, so please don't tell anybody, take it down. She did, but it was too late because your girl Eve and everybody who was sleuthing the Michael Vaughan case had screenshot that shit and saved it. We had got it, we grabbed it, it was over, finito. They should have told her not to say anything before they hung up the phone the first time. Sorry about your luck, better luck next time. But I'm glad that came out. It is a big deal to know that people knew about these folks, okay, before November of 2022 on a random day. So this is a Rule 11 plea agreement. It's different than local. It's a federal plea agreement. There's a lot of blah blahs here. It's just saying he had count 1 on the indictment of a felon possessing a firearm. Okay. He waives his constitutional rights at trial. So he's out of there. The right to plead not guilty to the offenses charged against the defendant and to persist that plea. The right to a trial by jury. He's waiving that shit. Go into the nature of the charges. Here's the element of the crime. Unlawful possession of a firearm. That's the count 1. Okay. He knew that he possessed this firearm and wasn't supposed to have it. Okay. The firearm had been shipped or transported from one state to another, I believe Connecticut to Idaho, or Canada through Canada to Connecticut and then Idaho. So I guess he just bought it online. I don't know how the fool got this gun, but he went through some hoops. And I'm surprised he didn't get more time for this, honestly. So here's the factual basis. April of 2022, he went to Bighorn Gunsmithing in New Plymouth and sold a Savage Arm model blah, 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 caliber rifle bearing this serial number and 7 boxes of ammunition. Now remember, Stacy didn't just get guns one day out of nowhere before Michael's disappearance. He grew up hunting with his grandfather and all that stuff. So he was just raised that way in Montana. So a lot of people want to say, oh my God, he was planning to murder Michael. No, not in that way. He was always a gun owner, or he always had guns around with his family. So stop all that. He sold this 17 caliber rifle to the owner of Bighorn Gunsmithing for $475. The defendant knowingly possessed his firearm and the ammunition. The ATF examined the rifle and determined it was manufactured in Canada and imported into Massachusetts. Man, I was wrong. I said Connecticut. I apologize. My mistake. So it was manufactured in Canada and imported into Massachusetts. Thus, by its presence in Idaho, the firearm traveled and affected both interstate and foreign commerce. Hold on a minute. Because it was manufactured in Canada and imported into Massachusetts and then ended up in Idaho, that's some shit. That's some shit, to be honest with you. That should not matter, in my opinion, because, in my opinion, it was made there. So is half the shit that, China manufactures a bunch of our stuff. So that's weird. Anyway, and imported into Massachusetts, which isn't Massachusetts liberal as hell? I didn't even think that they allowed certain guns. Anyway, thus by its presence in Idaho, the firearm traveled and affected both interstate and foreign commerce. That's wild. At the time the defendant possessed the firearm, he had previously been convicted of a crime punishable by a term of imprisonment exceeding 1 year, which was the false statement during the firearms transaction back in 2019 in Montana. At the time the defendant possessed the firearm, he knew his status as having been convicted of a crime punishable by imprisonment for a term exceeding 1 year. Hey, Dumplings Grammy. So he did get supervised release, which is why he's back in the pokey, because he violated those conditions. So here's the plea agreement. It's really just a basic, you give up your right to go to trial, you do all of these things, and that's that. It's very straightforward. Had, in my honest opinion, and mentions nothing of Michael Vaughan case at this point, it was just a separate incident. So there's just a lot of blah, blah. A lot of forfeiture of the actual gun itself. They seized the property. Just the law rhetoric. He accepts the responsibility is a big one. This is the biggest one. Sentencing guidelines and recommendations. Remember that report? After he finally went, okay, all right, let's go back to the beginning of the plea agreement and let's just go from there. That's exactly what it was. Again, this was August 23rd, 2022 that this motion was filed. Right here is what he took advantage of, in my opinion, when the investigators were grilling him and coming to him and saying, we'll give you a deal. Well, we'll give you a conditional deal if you tell me what happened. And he took that as, I can get out of prison early. That's, in my opinion, what he did. Now, or he could have totally knew. He could have totally had knowledge, and it could be based in reality. It just doesn't seem that way based on the situation. The documents that I've gone over, the local police coming over a multitude of times for random shit that they called about. It just doesn't make any sense. All right. If the defendant believes that the government has not fulfilled its obligations under this agreement, the defendant will object at the time of sentencing. Further objections are waived. There is a catch to this. Sometimes, especially in a mental incapacity or deficiency, and if counsel failed to do something appropriately in a procedural manner, you can direct appeal. There are exceptions to this rule, and that's what he did. Outside local state circumstances, that AKA the interrogation of Michael Vaughan's case. That's one of the exceptions, or he tried to use when he tried to change his plea. Okay. Now, it's a lot of law talk, but actually his motion was approved to be heard on that change of plea. Like, that's the irony. And I do believe that state, or specifically Fruitland PD and Payette County, were speaking to the feds, or at least the judge or the prosecutor, about this situation because of the search warrant information that is in another court document. So they were kind of going back and forth between each other to try to see what the best course of action is, because that's what happens all the time. If you have a local court case that's affecting trial dates and all of that stuff in federal, they talk amongst each other, blah, 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 blah. The prosecutors talk to each other on local and federal levels. Okay, it does happen, and it did happen here. The defendant may file an ineffective assistance of counsel, like I just said. See, so there's ways around that whole waiver, but you have to be legitimate. It has to be a legit reason. So blah blah blah. There's really not much in here outside of just legal jargon. no right to withdraw plea, consequences of violating the agreement, defendant's waiver of rights. Yeah. And here we go. They signed it and the judge approved it. And here's his signature saying on 7/30/2022 that this plea is a go-go. I waive my right to all the other stuff, blah, blah, blah. We are good. I'm going to get my sentence taken care of and I'm out. But remember, July of 2022, they were being investigated. So I do not believe at this point in time, Stacy Wondra knew they were going deep in the paint with Michael Vaughan's case. I don't. Not yet. Very soon. Yes, very soon. I think that they were looking to see what he would do with this plea agreement. And then Fruitland PD and maybe Plea were like, let's do this. Now that he took that plea, we know that he's going to get out at a certain time. Let's do this. Let's grill him. I do. What do you guys think? What do you think about that? It was officially signed off on August 10th, and I think literally within that week, or maybe even the day after, those investigators were coming to speak to Stacy. Matter of fact, let me pull up my phone really quickly to get the date of exactly when he said they came to talk to him. August 14th, y'all. It was supposed to be August 13th, but there was something going on in jail. August 14th, they went and spoke to him. They were waiting to see what he would do because that's their investigation was going to go in a different direction or whatever direction it may go, depending on his federal case, which that's very weak. Like, it shouldn't matter really what his plea deal is in a gun charge unless that gun or unless something evidentiary of value in the federal case is relevant to the local, to Michael's case in Payette. And maybe it is. We don't know. We don't know. But it doesn't seem like that, to our knowledge anyway. So let's jump to December real quick. And then we're going to go a little bit back into September, and then we're going to get into the new stuff. All right. So there was an unopposed motion to cancel the change of plea hearing and to continue trial in December, which I just showed you that in May of 2023, they just went right back to and reverted to as if they never changed anything, right? But this was after that December 20th was after the excavation on November 10th, right? And they said that they collected some evidence in November and early December that they were sending to the lab, and they were waiting on testing to come back. It was a private lab that they sent these things to, probably dirt and probably DNA testing, right? That had been degraded for a while to see if his DNA was in there. It's just my opinion. I don't know this, but then they excavated Brandon Shirtliff, the other suspect in the case who was staying with the Wondras. They excavated Mom's yard, right? And I don't think they found anything. So I think that they were waiting on that. But he cancels that plea once this man right here, which he spoke on, Stacy Wondra spoke on this man. He is one of the two lawyers in Payette County specifically who can cover or represent someone like Stacy who is facing a potential murder charge in the future, right, of a child, like death penalty stuff. He's one of two lawyers that can defend someone. So he came into this swinging. And honest to God, as a person, Stacy Wondra, as a person who has rights, right? If he wouldn't have, Stacy might just be so bucked, honest to God. I don't care if you think he's guilty or not. It doesn't matter what I think. Just as a human being with rights, like, he would have been so bucked if he did not have Thomas Monahan come in and say, we need to investigate this change of plea. And I'm going to show you that here in a second. Because he said, I understand that Stacy wants to change the plea after being spoken to by detectives. But he got in and investigated it. And then it started to unravel. Okay? It started to really fall apart. And that's why that December 2022 motion is basically starting over. They're trying to get back on track. The order of Thomas Monahan coming in and saying, whoa, Stacy, slow your roll, sir. We got to look at this. This isn't right. This is the proof that they gave that motion and appointing Thomas to his case in September of 2022. So were they grilling? My question is, how hard were they grilling him in August? And why didn't he, let's just say he did know where Michael's remains were in that backyard. Why didn't he do it then? It seems to me like this plea was contingent of telling investigators where he was, right? Like he said, I think he's being truthful. And I don't like the taste of that, because I'm not a particular fan of someone who would lie on a child and his remains, where it's despicable. But I do believe that was his motive and plan, was to come up with some cockamamie thing, as egregious as it is, about Michael back there in the backyard, using that as leverage and not telling them anything to get a better plea deal, to get out of prison, because he didn't know how long of a stint he was going to be looking at. It could have been 10 years. And from what he told me, I think they were trying to say that they would give him 7 years. They would try to work a deal to get 7 years, which is 3 years less than 10. So his brain went, all right. But again, it could be that he really did know. I don't know, right? I don't know. All I do know is that it makes a lot of sense what he is saying. He was using this horrible situation to get out of prison early, or to try to manipulate to get a better deal in his current federal case. Obviously, he could have saved himself some grief by just not, because everything went right back to where it was already headed. But because Stacy Wondra, who has fetal alcohol syndrome, who has no impulse control whatsoever, who was literally raised in a facility from teenage years to his mid-20s or early 20s, in a facility for people with disabilities, he had zero impulse control and thought he could manipulate his way, and he was smarter than everybody else. And he would do anything it took to get the hell out of federal prison. That's what I think happened. I think exactly what he said is true. And I could be wrong, and that's fine. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, he is not charged. There are no charges for these 4 suspects. None. So what do they need? What are they lacking? What are they waiting on? What is law enforcement? Are they waiting for him to come out of prison? Are they still grilling him? Like, what's the deal, right? It's hard to know. But we do know, or I know at least, that when Thomas came on board, everything went back to normal. everything went back to normal because maybe he saw what I'm saying. A person who thinks he's smarter than everybody, and he is digging his own grave just to see if he can get out of prison early. It's just wild, and for law enforcement, I'm sitting here thinking, what would you do if somebody told you this, whether it be true or not? You're not going to not act on a false claim of Michael's remains being in the backyard. You're going to go search. They did the right things. Law enforcement did what they thought was right. I don't think that it's based in any reality at all, though. And that's wild. Because if I were law enforcement, having somebody confess to knowing that he's back there and he's not, what do you do with that? Where do you go? You start over. In my opinion, I think that's exactly what they did and are doing. Because we haven't heard anything. The prosecutor for Payette County has said nothing. We do not know if these suspects that are not arrested and that are out there freely are a danger to society. I mean, they're not saying a word. And I think, in my honest opinion, it's because that was a hiccup in the plan that they already had without those 4 suspects. I think that they have a pretty good grasp, and that was just a really sidebar from hell that went wrong. But I do believe there is a connection still. In my personal opinion, I still believe there is something's there that's outside of these 4 people. Maybe it's a couple, maybe it's a few people, maybe, who knows? There's some connection in between Michael disappearing and that house, or the people that were within that house. I think that there's something around them. I do. And I don't know how that's going to go. And maybe the 4 suspects actually don't know or didn't know, or they're protecting some knowledge or people around it. I don't know. But it would be really nice to know at least that law enforcement is still actively working towards that. Give an update here and there. I've done this spill a million times, and they will. I know in my heart of hearts that Fruitland PD will eventually get there. They will. I do. I don't think that they'll stop. But the transparency sucks on their end. And I know what they're doing in the background. They're asking for funds. The prosecution is asking for software that helps build databases to see where the crime levels were in regards to Michael's case specifically. And I said it before, I've done that work. Me and the ladies that worked hard all the time, every day, night and day, we've done it. We'll resend it if we have to, but at the end of the day, it's very obvious that they don't know everything that happened on the day Michael went missing. And obviously, the prosecution is having a bit more of their hands in it than the detectives. And that's worrisome. That right there is worrisome. And that's how cold cases come especially in missing child's cases. And it's very alarming. That's what I'm worried about, that it's going cold and there's no direction, because that's what it's giving to me. And I hate that. I hate that feeling. For everybody, for the family. But the longer this goes without the truth coming out, and the harder to prosecute and to get answers. He's got siblings that need answers. More than anybody, his siblings need answers. Because that's trauma. That's just going to be there sitting, rotting, right? And I pray for them. A one-way street, I agree. All the correct legal steps must be taken to prevent a mistrial. Right, exactly. Yeah, he is slimy. That's a damn fact. Even with 10 years, wouldn't he be out in 7 anyway? And that's the thing. that's the thing that gets me. It's like, just because he didn't know for a fact, he wanted to know how long he was going to be in prison. He couldn't wait a day longer with emotion. He needed to know how long prison was going to be for him, right? The impulse control was too strong. The lack of impulse control, right? That's what I was saying. Like, he had to know when he could have just not and hurt people and spent thousands and thousands of taxpayer dollars searching for what, right? It's egregious. Mr. D, surely they would have been charged, right? Not yet. Not yet. Could have, I don't know. It's very hard. Gmail says he may have just been trying to save his cowardly skin. Right. From what, though? That's the question. From what? Knowledge? Direct knowledge? We just don't know. Absolutely. Absolutely spot on. I hope so. I hope I'm making sense, because it's really hard to decipher when there's nothing. There's nothing much to go on except for read between lines, and just be familiar with how these cases go. You just have to be familiar with true crime and how these things are played out, and the law a little bit. A lot of reading the statutes there, which is draining. Ugh. Is Sarah doing any talking? The only thing that she has said to me is, I don't know why they're saying these things about me. I did not harm that boy. I would never. I would be the first one to call 911 and report something like this, no matter who it was. Like, she is adamant that there is no involvement, none of that stuff. And basically that she was having a freak out moment. She was freaking out and making assumptions. And I get that. I see that. That's exactly why I think they dropped the charges on Sarah Wondra for failure to report a death, because there was no death that she needed to report. It just seemed that way when she was rambling. I mean, she had already been to the loony bin, I think, 3 times for her not being on medication, not staying on her medication for anxiety and bipolar, I think. Don't quote me on that. But her mental illnesses. And maybe that's because she did do something and her guilt's eating her away. I don't know. All I know is that that's what she said to me. And nothing has been said otherwise after that, to my knowledge. Not that I'm aware of. Okay, last but not least. Oh, let me just finish these comments. Ruby Rose, we need to find these children without remains resolution. These cases have no justice. Absolutely. Gmail says, I think Sarah is so twisted she would say anything. Could be. Could be. A one-way street. I agree about her. She had somewhat of a psychotic break. Right. Well, you saw JLR's picture of Sarah out on the driveway, just passed out or looking up at the stars like she's insane. I mean, maybe it was because, this was, I believe, in October 2022. She is getting word from Stacy that all this shit's going down. And she's probably thinking, you son of a bitch, why are you doing this? Well, who knows? I don't know. But it would make me crazy to think that this is somebody's plan. I don't know. It's wild. This case is so wild to me. The details of these suspects are just, it doesn't make any sense. And my mind does not compute. Last but not least, all right? And I'm sorry, I have allergies, so excuse my sniffles. August 7th, 2024. Stacy decides to write a letter to the federal courts in Idaho, the district court, because he's had it, y'all. He has had it with being called a child murderer, a cholo in prison. He is so fed up with being called all of these egregious names that he wants to sue Yeah, you heard me right. He wants to sue some folks for what he believes has happened to him wrongfully by Fruitland Police, Payette County Sheriff's Office, and I think another person. I don't know, like some rando. But here you could see Wondra versus the U.S. of A. Prisoner civil rights. Now I'm going to read you the complaint, and I'm going to read you what the court said back, which is pretty boring, but yeah. Bloodbath says, the Adrian guy was a stalker of mine for many years. The day that the kid went missing was my birthday. I found out today from one of his friends about this whole thing. Wow, I'm sorry that Adrian stalked you. That's nuts. So let's look at what Sir Stacy said. It's kind of hard to read, so bear with me, all right? It's probably written in either crappy ink, or pencil, probably pencil, because yeah. So here is the letter, by the way, the mailing address. Let me rotate this. I hate how this is now. I miss the old Adobe. All right, Stacy Wondra, Seminole, Florida. Like, what? This was in August of 2024. So I don't know how prison works with the mail. I always thought like they just used paper and, the jail would just mail your stuff out. But apparently they'll use online services or like application software on the tablets now. So maybe that's where the mail's coming out of. It's all weird. Okay. But it says that this correspondence is from an inmate at Grady County Law Enforcement Center, GCLEC, which is in Florida. And they say, we are not responsible for the content. But why is he in Florida? Was it crowded in the Ada County Kuna facility and they had to ship him off to Florida? But then it says Oklahoma City. Is that where the middle ground is for Idaho to Florida mail? I don't know. I just don't. Yeah, I know he has rat videos. Actually, I have videos of his rat videos. Yeah. So, federal courthouse. Send it to Boise. I can't tell you where the man is. All I know is that that's what's on that paper. So here we go. Petitioner Stacy James Wondra versus the United States of America. Okay. Fruitland Police Department, Idaho State Police, and Payette County Sheriff. So he's suing Fruitland Police, Idaho State Police, and Payette County Sheriffs. And it's a motion and intent to file a lawsuit. And it looks like something got erased or something. That's weird. That's missing. Anyway, and defamation of character and slander. Maybe he cussed. I don't know. In November of 2022, I, Stacy James Wondra, was wrongfully alleged as a suspect in Michael Vaughan's disappearance in Fruitland, Idaho, which is something I would never do. Since the allegations, I have been forced into administrative segregation. I have been physically assaulted. I have been mentally abused, all by people in prison and on the outside. I still every day get verbal threats. People call me horrible names like murderer, kidnapper, chomo, which is all in relation to these allegations. This lawsuit falls under federal and Idaho state statute of the 2-year statute of limitations. I am also demanding compensation. Y'all hold on to your butt cheeks here. Okay. I am demanding compensation for long-term pain and suffering, mental anguish, loss of wages for future and past, slander, and defamation of character. Y'all ready for this? I, Stacy Wondra, hereby demand that $80 million be awarded. $80 million. Hi, Sleuthy. I also request that the court waive any and all filing fees on top of that $80 million. Better have my money. Who do y'all think y'all fronting on? $80 million. Idaho State Police, Fruitland PD, Fayette County Sheriffs, pay the man. Split it. $20 million. Should be fine. I'm sorry, it is outrageous, and it's just, I gotta laugh because that's how I deal with trauma, right? That's how I deal with this shit. August 12th, that's what he said. Pay me my money for calling me all these things, making this situation happen. Even though he was the one that told police Michael was in the backyard. I think that had already happened in the womb, honey, you know? And I don't mean that really honest to God disrespectfully, but I sincerely believe that was already there, born with it, right? And that's the thing. Like, that this behavior, this is not the first letter that Stacy Wondra has written to the courts about being wronged. It's not his fault. He was forced and pushed into this, whatever the issue is, to get his way. And what do you do with this? And you know what I mean? What do you do with this kind of stuff? How do you even make... The only thing that it's going to do is make people go, you're insane. You did something to Michael, period. Especially because you said that he was back there in the backyard when they didn't find his remains that we know of. Or any evidence, right? So what do you do with this information? As law enforcement, I feel for them on this. I really sincerely feel for them. But that's why you investigate to the fullest, because people false confess a lot more than you think. A lot more. I'm talking 30, 35%. Especially loony boonies, all right? So this is what the court says. And then we're going to get out of here and skedaddle. It just blows my mind. Where is it? Where is it? I'll just tell you. It's really simple. They basically wrote him back saying that you have 30 days to explain yourself because there's not enough information here. What happened? You need to break it down on what happened. Who said what? Who are you suing in which part? Do you need legal representation? You must get you some lawyers or a lawyer for this civil issue. But because he's a prisoner within the civil, within the prison, that's kind of the problem, is that because he's suffering allegedly in the jail for this crime of slander, or not crime, but, you know, civil issue of slander and all that stuff, that's where it gets tricky. So they could intervene in that legal aspect and could do some work. I don't know. But he has got to detail every single thing out. And so that's what they were requesting back. You're going to have to do some work. So he's going to have to get a lawyer. He's going to have to explain himself to this lawyer. And there we are. He's actually suing locally too. He is suing 2 people for failure of payment for something in relation to court. I don't know what it is or why, but he's suing them for it. And it's just in stalemate. There's no updates on that case, but it's locally in Fayette. So I guess he's suing everybody out here. Hide your kids, hide your wife. He's suing you. The amount is so ridiculous. 80 million, yeah. Somebody told him to shoot for the moon, so he landed among the stars. Oh. Where is my soundboard piece for The Price is Right? Where it's do 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 burr. Girl, that was good. Oh. Yeah, I do hate that. Yeah, I don't hate it. I just don't, I'm not on the same page, you know? Hi, Nico. Good to see you, love. You missed a lot. You just have to listen and potentially fall asleep and then listen again to try to catch up. It's a lot. I'm exhausted. Yeah, I agree. All right, lovelies. Thank you so much for being here with me, even after I have basically ghosted y'all for a little bit. Karen Reed took over my family. Strep A, good Lord, it's been crazy this year. But that is what's going on in the Michael Vaughan case. I really hope that we hear anything, something. Oh, and real quickly, I don't know if you knew, Brandy and Tyler got married on September 21st, excuse me, 19th. Yeah, 19th, 2021. And so congratulate them for getting married after quite a while of engagement, if you will. So there's that. Woohoo. Sleuthy says, and we got to do Karen Reed all over again. You know what? I'm ready. I'm about that life. I know, thanks to Sleuthy Goosey and the motions that she provided, I am here for it. I really honestly don't think it's going to go far. I don't think she's going to be able to be tried there. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe Weinberg will fuck it up enough. I don't know. Thank you so much, guys. Sorry for the potty mouth. Justice for Michael Vaughan. It has been 3 years since he disappeared. And I really hope it doesn't go to 4 years. Maybe in October something happens. I have a feeling we have about a month and a half before something breaks. That's just my personal opinion. I have no special knowledge on that. But pray for his case. I'm afraid it's going to go cold. All right, guys. Thank you so much. See you on the next live. Drink your water, hug your babies, your fur babies, your grandbabies, all your babies. Let's get justice for these missing children. Bye-bye.